It is, oh, can I get those ready? Okay, it is 6 o'clock, so I will call this meeting to order. Can everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I got it. Alicia, could you please do roll call?
Yes. Lori Blargen.
Here.
Ian McDonald.
Here.
Matt Buchwald.
Here.
Lacey Oster.
Here.
Bruce Blargen.
Here.
Cherie Link.
Here.
Marge Blow.
Here. Okay. Is there a motion to approve our agenda tonight? Do you want to do a?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to move the presentation of the Spartan Spotlight ahead of public comment, just so they can leave if they want to, being we have so much public comment. That's okay?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we will begin then with our Spartan Spotlight of the Middle School Blanket Project.
Look, here she comes. Come on, you're up. Your fashion. You pull it up.
Push
You were, but we moved it. Just to keep you on your toes. Just in case, okay? I know you did. Good evening, everyone. Yes, you get to be up here. Great, awesome. So I have with me longtime student council advisor, Don Peter. Very long, because we used to do it together a long time ago when this whole project started. So Dawn Pierce here, and then she does have some of her student council members, one of her own, who's up here, a part of it, that they'll introduce themselves, let them know who they are and what grade they're in.
I'm Isabel Johnson. I'm an 8th grader at Somerset Middle School. I've been on student council for 4 years now.
I'm Magdalene Pierre. I'm 5th grade at Somerset Middle School, and I've been student council for 1 year.
I'm Caleb Linkletter, and I'm in 8th grade, and I've been in student council for 4 years.
I'm Dawn Pierre, and I've been on student council for 20 years.
Yep, it has been. And I looked because Mrs. Richardson, who knows all things about the middle school, we've been doing this project since 2006. We have pictures back for that piece. So what we wanted to just share with you this evening a little bit, and I'm going to let the kids kind of talk about their perspective of it. I'm going to give more the nuts, the bolts, and the why. And then let Dawn tell a little bit about where she got this idea from many, many years ago. So if you want to scroll ahead. Why did we do this? One of the things that we work really hard at the middle school is to show our kids the power of service. Service learning, it helps to develop character. They have to work together at this. This is not a project that one person can do. I mean, they could, but it's much more fun for them to work together. And then we are having an impact on the lives of others. And I'm going to let Dawn just talk a tinge more about kind of where that came from.
So back in 2005, 2006, I had the privilege of going down to Madison for 2 summers and working at a student council camp at the time. And one of the projects that they did at that camp was this blanket project, and then they sent the tie blankets to Children's Hospital down in Madison. And so when I came back from that camp and I was given the privilege of being the student council advisor, I said, this is something that we can bring into our school. Anyone can participate. What you need to have the skill to do, you have to be able to cut and you have to be able to make knots. And so our students are able to do that. And so we started this project. That first year, we needed to raise enough money to buy scissors for the entire middle school to be able, to spread out, and the fleece. And I believe that first year we had donated from the Somerset community over $2,000. So that first year we created, and I just remember that we created 140 blankets, and we're able to purchase 25 pairs of Fisker scissors because they have to be able to cut fabric. So that year was our biggest donation year. And in that year, it went to Lakeview Medical Center in Stillwater. It went to the Women's Shelter in River Falls. It went to Grace Place. And the fourth location that first year, I think was Osceola
I think it was,
Medical
I think
Center,
so.
and they only wanted like 6 blankets.
Yep.
Because they have very few people come and go from their particular medical center. But that was the history of it, and then from there, you'll notice Jordan Walter there, looking a little bit younger than he does now. So this is a combination of this year's seniors, and I tried to recognize some of the others to get a general idea of the year. I recognize Natalie Hansen and Siobhan, the oldest Siobhan, who is a senior?
Sophomore. Junior.
Junior? Yeah.
I don't know.
So these are the few years.
So why don't you guys talk a little bit about the blanket parade and how that gets organized, because it's a little bit chaotic before we all get organized. Yeah, how you walk in and how we get organized and cover blankets and stuff. Have you been a part of it? Yes.
We all line up outside and we kind of get in piles, not piles, but like, no, we get like in the groups, and then
Oh,
throughout the line you kind of share what you made and the pattern, and I think it's pretty cool because a lot of 5th graders I saw at least this year was cool, like I got a basketball one or I got a rainbow one, and then you just kind of like enter into the gym, and I was honestly kind of scared walking into the gym, but as I did, I think it was pretty cool because everyone just started applauding and cheering, which I honestly haven't seen it before for my grade, but I thought it was pretty cool. And then hearing how much like blankets we made, I thought that was pretty inspiring.
do you have anything to add? Or did she do such a great job?
She did good.
She did. It is really powerful because the kids are cheering, because it's a lot of hard work, and it's really cool for them to see it all together in one spot. Go ahead, Alicia. So over the course of the last, nearly 20 years, we've made and donated over 2,000 blankets. And I think the next slide has where it's gone to. And that's kind of ebbed and flowed a little bit each year.
So we have the same groups that we go to every year. But at one point, the Children's Hospital in Kentucky reached out to us, and so.
And I think it was due to this project right here. I think
Yes.
it was a Boy Scout project. So our reach went way beyond just, western Wisconsin and, eastern Minnesota.
Yeah.
I think new this year was the senior.
So I was at a church function, and they had created a couple of blankets because I'm really into blanket creating, and we decided to send it to our seniors who are at home. They're homebound. And so I thought, well, why aren't we doing that? And Steph Magnuson, our art teacher, had 25 6th graders make an art piece to go along with their blankets this year. So the senior centers not only got a blanket, but they also got a middle school art piece, which was beautiful.
Very, very well received.
And a letter.
Yep. So just wanted you to be able to see some of the impact that we've gotten some pretty awesome thank you notes over the years. So the one on the left is from one of the senior centers where I think the blankets and the art project went, and the person on the right also received one of those. The next slide, this one is actually back from 2012. This little girl wrote about the fact that she was the first one to get to pick when she was at the hospital, and I love the line. It said, "It was a good surprise and a not so fun time," right? So when folks are that way. And then the next one, this year, so Joyce Hecht, who some of you may know on the left, sent us a beautiful thank you note. And then her daughter also sent the boy in his class who created it another note and a donation for $100 to go to pay it forward. So these kids are having a really awesome impact, and Mrs. Peer here does an amazing job of organizing all of that chaos. So this is just some of our 5th graders from this year as they were working.
And 8th graders helping the 5th graders.
And 8th graders helping the 5th graders. So
And
we tried, go ahead.
I just want to give a special shout out to the 5th grade team, who every year takes extra time to teach the 5th graders how to build these projects, how to measure it. By 8th grade, all I do is just, here's your material, and tell them to go, because the 5th grade teachers do such a wonderful job of measuring and showing them how big to make the ties and make the squares on the corners. So the 5th grade team is awesome at teaching that.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, then moving on, we'll kind of go back. We'll go to our public comment. Before starting our public comment, opinions and ideas contributed by students, parents, staff, and other citizens are valuable to the school board. All comments should be directed to the board and not to staff or other meeting attendees. All statements should be directed to me, as no person may address or question board members individually. The board will receive such input without comment or take no action relative to any items brought forth. We may direct the district administrator to consider such an item at an appropriate place on the agenda or a subsequent meeting. Per board policy, your public comment will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. And when someone comes up, by stating your name and address, and Matt will start the timer. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with Tom or Thomas.
Do we need clarification on yielding?
What was that?
Do we need clarification on yielding 3 minutes to another speaker?
Oh, I was going to if it happened.
Hello, my name is Thomas Sweeney. The reason I'm here is to explain why we need to keep the Gifted and Talented program and why it's important to the students. My first reason is that our brains need stimulation. As a gifted and talented student, we are different from 95% of the world. Our brains work in the same way that is entirely different from the brains of most people. Some things that come more easily to us than they do with other people. We may be able to explore ideas more deeply than other kids our age. As gifted and talented kids, we experience life in a more complex, speed, and often more intense way. We are simply different. Secondly, we look forward to our gifted and talented class with Ms. Bader. She teaches us how to use our unique abilities to our advantage. I found something that can help us keep this class. It is a grant from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. The grant, if obtained, will help support the Gifted and Talented program and hopefully keep Ms. Bader, who has worked as a gifted and talented teacher for about 10 years, from being laid off. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Tom?
Good evening. That was my son. I'm very proud of that.
You should be.
We just moved up here from Florida, and some of the reasons why we chose Somerset is because of the school district. They offered this program. Seeing my son excited about coming to school. God, this stinks, man. Good job, buddy. It means a lot. And seeing him grow here is super important. And man, I really think that the school board needs to reevaluate what it is they got this profession for. Did we get into this profession because we want to make a paycheck, or we want to make a difference in our kids' lives? He spends the majority of his time here, and the school board and the school really needs to reevaluate being able to push these kids and give them the opportunities to progress and to, grow as a person and get that higher education. And that's one of the reasons why we chose this school system. I understand everyone is equal, and that's the new push right now. But we have to reevaluate that and look that not everyone is equal. Not everyone can be a winner. We need to make sure that we're pushing these children. If all we're looking at is mediocrity, then we just continue on at the path that we're going here at the school system. If we want to actually produce well-rounded students that are going to be, professional and, be able to give back to society, we need to have these programs. It's not, I voted for the school, all the improvements and all that. I believe in that. I was a student athlete, okay? But I wasn't just an athlete, I was a student. Student comes first before athlete. And when we start taking away our teachers and we start taking away our programs, we're kind of getting off track of what it is we are here for. I think in the long run, we really need to look back and, keep our shop classes, keep our economic classes, keep our gifted programs. We can keep all those things and let our kids grow. And we can also build and have these great facilities. I just want to, I went completely off script, sorry. Just proud of that kid.
About 30 seconds, Colin.
Nice. I just ask you to keep that program, keep his teacher here, keep the other teachers. Give us some hope rather than, crush these kids' dreams, and they look forward to going to school. Don't let them come to school and not be challenged. So, I appreciate it. Sorry.
Danielle Erickson?
Danielle Erickson, 62nd Street, Somerset, Wisconsin. The parents of Somerset students are formally requesting an appeal to the school board regarding the decision made about the perks of being a wallflower that is to remain in the Somerset High School library. We believe there are better options for our scholastic library, with the American Library Association listing this book at the top of the 10 most frequently challenged books in schools and libraries for the last decade. Virginia's Madison County School Board has removed this book from their school library, citing adult content, as well as Spotsylvania County Public Schools in Virginia, removing the perks of being a wallflower due to sexual content. We do not consider this book as banned from our public school library, rather removed due to the inappropriate content for minor children, as this book can be checked out at the public library. Going forward, we expect to see the book review committee's reasons why they think these works of literature are good or even just fitting for our minor youth to read. There were no reasons listed in the letter we received with this decision. Our understanding from students and parents is that this is a school library book, as well as used as curriculum and required reading for several years prior, going back to at least 2017, 2018, and used again in 2019 and 2020. In a meeting with Trish and Shannon, it was confirmed that with 69 copies in the library, it was probably used as curriculum material. The lack of transparency in this process is disappointing. There is no accountability as for the prior decisions to use this as required reading. We trust our children in your care, and actions like these diminish that trust. Most of the sources you state you use for vetting are political based, who don't believe in any restrictions whatsoever, while the other sources are not transparent on graphic content. But you still rely on them during this review process. You speak about a rubric being used to evaluate these books, yet it is not shared with us. We ask for our parents to be involved in the review process, which is a standard option for this process, yet we are shut out. We as parents have a right to be involved in our children's education and protection of our children. The small minority of opposition have an alternative. They can use the public library or they can buy the books. We, the majority, do not have any alternatives to protect our children with these books being offered to our kids in the library. Thank you.
Jolene? What'd you say? Jolene.
Good evening. Jolene Degelow, 196th Avenue in Somerset. Thank you for having us. Regarding the decision made by the District Book Review Committee to retain the book, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, we have read the book in question. It falls short on so many levels, as does your vetting process. This book focuses on an overwhelming amount of graphically described traumatic experiences to include molestation, incest, rape, abortion, drug and alcohol abuse, random hookups in the park, and more. The rape and sex scenes described are nothing short of erotica and pornography. Experts in the field of child development agree that pornography prematurely sexualizes kids and desensitizes them to sexual violence, molestation, and sexual deviancy. Studies show a significant correlation between the use of pornography and aggressive attitudes and behaviors towards women. I've raised a teenager. I am well aware of how impressionable they are. My teen always had friends at our house. We were a safe space for many kids. Imagine, if you will, myself, or even my husband, gathered my teen and his friends together and read them this passage from the book in question, which is written in the perspective of a young boy watching a male sexually assault a female. Quote, "He reached to take off her pants, but she was starting crying really hard, so he reached down for his own. He pulled his pants and underwear down to his knees. Please, Dave, no." But the boy just talked soft to her about how good she looked and things like that, and she grabbed his penis and her hand started moving it. I wish I could describe this a little more nicely without using the words penis, but that was the way it was. After a few minutes, the boy pushed the girl's head down and she started to kiss his penis. She was still crying. Finally, she stopped crying because he put his penis in her mouth, and I don't think you can cry in that position. I had to stop watching at that point because I started to feel sick, but it kept going on and they kept doing other things and she kept saying no. End quote. Page 30, Perks of Being a Wallflower. Let me point out the obvious. The above content presented to a minor constitutes sexual abuse and should be reported as such. A person presenting this to a minor would end up on a sex offender list. It's frustrating and disappointing that the proponents of unrestricted reading at any age always are more alarmed by a book ban, which this is not. It is requesting only age-appropriate content, and they are not concerned with the damage that this explicit content does in rewiring the brain towards addiction, normalized sexual violence against women, triggering past sexual abuse, and destroying the innocence of children.
15 seconds.
We implore you to understand the implications of this book. Please do the right thing for our children and remove it. Thank you.
Allison?
My name is Allison Carrico, 1731 12th Street. I'm here about the books under review. 66 days ago, an email was sent regarding concerning content in books located in the Somerset High School Library and displayed in Ross Miller's room, Mr. Ross Miller's room. Since then, a committee was formed by and including Superintendent Shannon Donnelly to review these books. This past Friday, Shannon sent an email with the conclusion of the very first completed book review. The email reads, and I quote, "The committee completed a thorough review process and consensus of the committee is that the perks of being a wallflower will remain in our Somerset High School Library." End quote. Please let me enlighten you on the content of this book. Right away on page 2, it talks about sex. On page 4, suicide. Page 6, girls' breasts. Page 12, a brother sees his sister naked, and I quote, "Her legs were draped over either side of the couch," end quote. Page 21, masturbation. I'll spare you the excerpts. Page 30 is an entire rape scene that she just read for you. Page 33, drugs. Page 44, loss of virginity. Page 49, they use the phrase blow queen. Page 66, underage drinking. Page 70, and I quote, "She told me about the first time she was kissed. She told me it was with one of her dad's friends. She was 7. End quote. On page 70, we have pedophilia. Pedophilia in a school library book. This is absurd, and I'm not even halfway through the book. Page 81, they use the phrase bitchy dyke. Really? On page 116, teen pregnancy, 158, and I quote, "They did it doggy style with a sandwich bag," end quote. Last board meeting on April 3rd, there was a public comment made, and I quote, "These are good books," end quote. I'll give you another example of a book on our list. All Boys Are in Blue by George M. Johnson. The book displayed in Mr. Ross Miller's room on page 202. You can read it if you want it right here. I quote, "By now we are touching each other. I tried my best not to enjoy it because you were my cousin." Incest in a school library book. This is horrific. On March 20th, another public comment was made here, and I quote, "The writing in the Kite Runner is superb," end quote. On page 6 of the Kite Runner, and I quote, "I knew your mother. Did you know that? I knew her real good. I took her from behind by that creek over there. What a tight little sugary cunt she had," end quote. That is superb, though I'd say so. Then on page 24, selling children, literally human trafficking,
20
in
seconds.
a school library book. Suicide, rape, incest, pedophilia, human trafficking, content under no circumstances belongs in the school library shelves or in the hands of our children. It's always been about the children, always will be about the children. Thank you.
Always been
Our children.
Can someone explain why that's appropriate book?
They won't. They
No,
can't.
you're gonna have to like go to a listening session or something, or
Lisa, do
email.
you wanna go?
What
Emails don't work either.
Lisa Lind, 2133 62nd Street. As a nurse for over 35 years, I don't care where you put your adult penis or what you insert into your adult vagina or rectum, as long as it is with a consenting adult. Does that make you uncomfortable? Is that statement taboo? Well, let me say this. Your personal business is up to you. What I care about is a school district making books available that spoon feed vile, taboo, uncomfortable filth and pornography to our youth under 18. Can I ask why we are so hell-bent on providing books that if found in a video store in the early 2000s would have been behind that secret curtain? What could possibly be value added to make sure our kids can read about sucking dicks and forcing sex on unwilling victims? Nobody is saying the books can't be in the public library, but to have them in our school library is akin to letting a child play with matches, razor blades, play in traffic, drinking poison, but hoping they won't get too hurt. If a parent desires their children to have access to these types of books, the public library is your stomping ground. But unless and until we stand in protection of kids safely and keep them safe from the curiosity that killed the cat, we are lowering the perversion bar so deviant behaviors, suicides, rapes, body dysmorphia, eating disorders can continue to rob, steal, and cheat our kids of their childhoods. To all of you willing to sacrifice your kids' innocence as a form of freedom, my heart breaks for the childhood your kids could have had. Did you know the Bible talks about having faith like that of a child? What does that mean? Kids have joy, they have hope, they have promise, they have love. They are little sponges that drink in whatever their authority figure pours out for them. Can we not just provide a filter for our school-age kids beneath the roof of this vast building so that their minds might just be protected just like the walls of this school with its security system and protocols? There's a big, huge, dark, and ugly world ready to gobble up these kids. Perhaps Somerset School District can take a stand and be the district not willing to sacrifice our kids' minds. Adulting is hard. Let's protect them while we still can. We owe it to our precious kids.
Maya Skirica, 444 Randall Drive, Amory, Wisconsin. We as parents of the Somerset School District maintains the role as secondary. We the parents desire the Somerset School District to maintain the role as secondary educators while respecting the primary role of the parents in their child's education and upbringing. Quality literature should be evaluate our children's minds, provide positive character, models for students to replicate, challenging their reading and language skills, building love for reading. This book does nothing of the sort, speaking of the wallflower, Perks of a Wallflower being put back on our shelf. Their still developing brains are flooded with powerful neurochemicals, and they lack the maturity to process this content in an appropriate way. The American Bar Association states that exposure to pornography harms children and youth by normalizing sexual violence, creating unrealistic expectations for intimate partners in relationships, and increasing the risk of addiction. Studies on sexual content and violence in the media indicate that youth accept, learn from, and may emulate behaviors portrayed in the media as normative, attractive, and without risk. A 2006 to 2008 survey of youth aged 10 to 15 found that the youth who reported exposure to pornographic materials were 6.5 times more likely to report sexually aggressive behavior. Youth who reported exposure to nonviolent materials were more than 3.5 times to report sexually aggressive behavior, while youth who reported exposure to violent material were 24 times more likely to report sexually aggressive behavior. Establishing romantic and sexual relationships is a central development task for youth and young adults. Exposure to sexual content can compromise their ability to establish and maintain healthy, intimate relationships. Sexual socialization theory suggests frequent exposure to consistent themes about gender and sexual behavior can affect a young person's developing sense of what is expected sexually from men and women, and may also affect later behavior. It has been 23 years since this book was published. There are far better choices to offer and require our youth to read. Our children deserve better. Thank you.
Okay, moving on with our agenda, we're looking at are the school representatives, we'll come back if they come, maybe they have a sport practice. Okay, we'll wait. The listening session summary. Cherie, were you Cherie and Lori, or just Cherie? Yeah. Would one of you be willing to?
Yeah, we had 3 people attend. 2 of them were staff members who were expressing concern regarding the elimination of staff with direct contact with students. And the 3rd person was Louis Germain, who's been to our meetings before, and asked a question about question regarding our budget shortfall for 22-23 and the projected shortfall for 23-24. Bruce or Cherie, is there anything you want to add? Okay.
Does he want some sort of a follow-up from?
We were able to answer his question because it was the listening session.
Oh.
And he decided he didn't have to stay for public comment.
Okay.
And just to go back to public comment, we always have that on the second meeting of the month, the half-hour prior.
You mean the listening session?
Listening session, in which that is a time that things can be a little bit less formal than our public comment time. The superintendent's report.
Okay. So I've got kind of a lengthy list here. Starting with, I will start with referendum. So we haven't had a meeting since the vote, which is super exciting. You know, thank you to the community for supporting those needs. You know, lots of work went into, you know, making sure people were informed. Lots of things happening around this table, so I appreciate the help. I know that was some really good feedback people had, was hearing from board members, seeing things on social media from all of you, which I know is helpful. So a couple things to kind of think about as we move forward. I did have just kind of an initial, you know, a day or 2 after the vote meeting with Wold and Market Johnson, just to kind of get, okay, like what does this look like next, right? And really as a board, I'm hoping we can have some dialogue here tonight to kind of talk about hopefully you feeling comfortable moving forward with Wold and Market Johnson. You know, we're kind of considering this an extension of phase 1 from the 2019 referendum. We've had a really good relationship with them. You know, a successful construction project in 2019. You know, they've been very supportive of kind of the next phase of this, so that would be my recommendation. Each of them do have some documents that I can share with you where they're kind of talking about their fee proposal. I did send it to Bruce in particular this afternoon, just for him to kind of start looking at it. I can send that to everyone as well. And really needing to kind of get some direction from you before we leave tonight, of just kind of what is your comfort level with moving forward versus doing kind of a whole nother big RFP, et cetera, in terms of looking at construction manager, project manager, those kinds of things. So I don't know, Bruce, if you had any thoughts there as well.
Yeah, I mean, initially, I think it's making sure that we get their proposals and review them, compare them to last time. I mean, I remember they were, they had lower fees and staff. I mean, just reviewing those again. I think it's important just to see how it compares. You can't just walk in and give somebody the job either. And I've been thinking about it since I got those, and just, I think we really need to give them to tell them, all right, what do you have?
Yep.
Give us your best here. We don't, personally, I don't want to open it up. I don't want to spend another month and a bunch of days in here interviewing people. I mean, they did do a great job, but I want to make sure that we're not overpaying for something either, because I mean, they're in it to make money just like anybody else. So I think it's just, let's get the numbers from them and let's compare them to what we had before. And I don't know if it's worth reaching out to maybe somebody else too. I mean, I don't know. I've been kind of thinking about it all afternoon. Even when we do one, I've never been handed a second one either. So we got to make sure we're still, who's their project team, who do we feel most comfortable with. So especially with the budget situation we're in.
Is there no requirement to go to RFP?
I believe we have
By
a
law.
policy that does require us to go to RFP for anything over, isn't it $10,000?
Yeah. So certainly we can do anything and everything. That's kind of what I need to get, just kind of a flavor from the group here tonight of kind of what does that look like. So in talking to Trevor today too, I'd asked him a couple questions about this, of like, what have you seen? What do you suggest as next steps? He at some point would also want to make sure that he looks at the contract so he can do some compare and contrast as well. I'm happy to move forward with whatever direction. If you want some more information, specifically starting with those two, we can do that. I know I haven't sent that to the whole board, but we can start there. The RFP thing, I think when I asked, because I'd asked Trevor about that, and his interpretation was that you certainly could build this as an extension from the first project, because they have stayed with us kind of throughout that. We've had ongoing things that we've been navigating, and then we kind of moved right into, obviously the work that we started last fall, moving into the spring. But, if the flavor of the board is to do a full RFP, then the big piece there just backs up the timeline for everything, so.
How long of a process is it?
It'll be multiple months.
I think there's a required timeline. We gotta put it out for RFP, like 3 weeks. We gotta build it and put it out and then interview. And I don't know, I'm wavering because I know where we are at with the budget and what we've just done, and listening to a couple things. I would love to hand it to Market. I really would. I would love to hand it to Wold, especially with all they've done for us and with us, but this is a new bucket of money too, and it's just I don't know. I don't want to delay it, but I don't know what other people's thoughts are.
How specific do they get with scope before they can give you fees?
I mean, they'll have their construction fee right off the bat that they'll put in.
As a
and then,
percentage?
Yeah, they should have a percent right away. A pre-con services, that's always the number that everybody gives, and then they'll talk about general conditions, who's going to be on staff, who's going to oversee, because everyone knows what the project is. I mean, it's the 3 things we're doing. So they would have a pretty good number of what the staff they anticipate being on this, and because they know each what the projects are.
What does the timeline look like to begin with? So we know, like, okay, if it goes to RFP, what does that push us back? What would their thought be? When does that stadium get rebuilt? What happens with our football season in the fall?
Yeah, so nothing would happen until next spring. And that's with, so let's just make the assumption that we went with Wold and Market Johnson tomorrow. That wouldn't change that part of it. Nothing is happening this fall, with the exception of probably starting to look at some of the elementary maintenance pieces. We'll look at when we can sell some bonds and things like that. But in terms of like stadium, auditorium, none of that would happen until the following fall. So some of the most immediate next steps with that is, in order for that timeline to be met, getting a user group coordinated for the auditorium in particular, where you're starting to look at kind of big picture scope, not necessarily into the infinite details of design, doing site visits, you know, very similar process to kind of what we did in the 2019 when we were touring schools and things like that. For the stadium, it wouldn't necessarily be a core planning group, it would be more what they call a user group, because the stadium is it kind of is what it is. We're not looking at big design features and things like that. It's really just having some discussion of ensuring everyone's on the same page of where some things are going to be placed and some things like that. So definitely not as detailed as the auditorium component, which, you know, we'll want to make sure we gather students, staff, you know, parents. Our music boosters has been very active, you know, potentially a couple community members to be involved in that process. So, you know, RFP would kick that out a couple months, so everything would back up a couple months. So when I talked to Wold, you know, their prediction would be that we'd be able to officially kind of move into the auditorium a year from like this Christmas break. So I don't know, just to give you a little bit of an idea of.
So you mean December of '24?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's just a summer construction, they'll have it done? They
Well,
start in the spring
so
and
starting immediately in the spring, yep, going through
they'd have it done by Christmas?
summer, fall, and because that's not one of those projects you can kind of half move into. It's kind of, you get in when everything's done, essentially, so.
But that means there's no, for the track, there's no use next spring either with it?
Oh, she was just talking about the auditorium.
No, I know, but if everything starts in the spring, then
Right.
that track is not usable next
Yep.
year either.
So between bidding and everything else, nothing would happen this year. Next year then is when construction would start, and the following season is when we'd host a meet. Mhm. So the other thing, just that this doesn't need a decision tonight, but just for your awareness, so I've had multiple people reach out to me wanting to, you know, get some donations, et cetera, lined up for turf. So something we can talk about, does not have to be discussed now, but I've had some, I would say, bigger donors reach out and want to be a part of trying to get turf infused in this as well. Obviously, it wouldn't cost the taxpayers anything, but nothing that needs to be decided now, just putting it on your radar that that conversation has started to happen within the community with some people that are passionate about getting an all-purpose playing field here on campus that goes beyond just football, obviously. So more informational, so.
Well, I think with the way the market has changed and we're a fairly new board, I think it should go to RFP.
Mhm.
I don't know, I didn't interview Wold, Mark Johnson. They may come in at the top, but I think it should go to RFP.
Well, in saying it's a continuation of the project, I feel like it was a complete different referendum. I mean, I know it's
Sure.
that phase 2, but I think it's still a different as far as that RFP goes. I think especially with, again, like you're saying, with budget and things to, I don't know if we're doing our due diligence if we didn't go through RFP because we need to be checking all those pieces. So that's my take.
I agree completely. Bruce, do you remember who you interviewed for the 2019? And were you in on that too, Ian?
Not at that point. There was like 6 different contractors.
So another architecture firm that the district has used pretty extensively is Seymour Davis and Seymour. And another construction company is Krause Anderson, who's done a lot of
They interviewed
construction
last
here.
time. They interviewed for sure. They were in here.
Yeah, and we used them for like the last high school edition, if I remember correctly, with the added classrooms.
You know, so there are at least, you know, those two other companies that I'm familiar with that I know the district has had a long relationship with. But I think it would be not very wise of us to just hand it to someone without going through the process.
Would we be able to take action on that tonight so we could start that process immediately if that's what we all, the majority, decided?
It's not on the agenda.
So we couldn't add it as something to approve?
Is it referendum 2023 next steps? That's the next step.
It's a report.
I'd still be fine making a motion to go to RFP for architect, construction manager. Two separate RFPs.
I agree. I'd be comfortable having a motion as well. I think it's listed there and it doesn't have possible action, but I think we should get moving as fast as we can.
So are you seconding?
Did you make a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion to move forward with
Oh, then I
RFP.
second that, yes. Sorry, I thought you just said you support it.
Bruce makes a motion, Matt seconds. Is there additional discussion? I know this wasn't as a item, but it was on our agenda, and I feel like if we are saying we feel more comfortable as a board to go through RFP, but this can at least speed up that process by a couple weeks, I support that. Any other discussion? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote just so we can make sure since this wasn't on. Lori?
Yes.
Ian?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Bruce?
Yes.
Sheree?
Yes.
Marge?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, more to come.
Okay.
Okay. I think that was referendum. So, 23-24 budgetary considerations. You know, at my superintendent meeting last week, I got, I would say, a little tiny bit of information, more than I've heard, in terms of, as all these listening sessions are happening around the state. You know, lots of organizations from like my superintendent organization, WASB, school board organizations, they have people that are going to all of these, listening to these sessions, and try to pick up, you know, essentially bits and pieces of what are some of the commonalities that are being talked about at all these sessions. And some of the things that they're hearing, hoping that late June, early July, that they will have a decision made in terms of, you know, what the governor's budget is going to look like. Feeling pretty confident that because the state has a record surplus, there's less money to argue about from both sides, that they feel like this process will go much quicker than normal because you're not push-pulling for a little tiny amount. There's a $7 billion surplus. Education seems to be a pretty big ticket pot in every session they're listening to, so there's some good conversation there. And, you know, as many people have spoke to tonight, you know, as we're kind of navigating as a district some really hard decisions that we've had to make and talk about in terms of how we best prepare for a 23-24 and 24-25 budget, knowing that we're missing a huge chunk of information has not been easy. I validate all of the conversations that were happening here tonight in terms of some of the, I mean, listening to that student and the parent speak. Those are really important things for us to hear. And I just want to reiterate that, you know, these things are really hard, and I know these things come with emotions, and you know, districts having to make these decisions are hard and lots of moving pieces. There are still lots of moving pieces that we'll be kind of navigating until we get kind of that final information from the state. So I will continue to keep, obviously, the district and the community updated on kind of where we land. I'm feeling a tinge more hopeful after hearing some of that information last week. But obviously we won't know until the final information is released. So, okay, moving to the unexpected April 26th road construction that's happening in town. I think you've known from my weekend updates, you know, all the other meetings that we've been a part of were indicating this was not going to happen until June. So this was kind of sprung on everybody a little bit unexpectedly, that the intersection and the bridge will be shut down starting April 26th. That date may vary a little bit, but that's in terms of the district, that's what we're planning on. So I had a meeting with Safeway today. They've already been actively looking at bus routes and kind of determining what some of the changes are going to have to be. And communication will go out to families tomorrow, basically indicating that you can plan on your bus route in the morning, probably starting 10 to 15 minutes earlier, and at night your bus ride being 10 to 15 minutes longer. That's a general statement. That may not mean every single student is going to be impacted that way, but Dewey is really, and actually Michelle Mahler as well, doing a lot of twisting and turning to try to make do the best that we can. This is obviously out of our control, and trying to minimize the amount of time our kids are on the buses, but you know, we don't have a lot of time with this coming up, you know, next week obviously, but just want to reiterate that there'll be communication going out to families tomorrow. If people have questions, Dewey said you can certainly call the bus garage, you can certainly call Michelle Mahler here, but kind of one of those things that it is what it is. We can't change it, so we'll do the best we can to be flexible and keep families updated with any changes with the routes, because we know that it might take a couple days to kind of fine tune, you know, some of those new ways to get to school and get home, but we'll do the best we can. So if people have questions, definitely reach out and let us know. The last thing I had is just a reminder of commencement. So this is sneaking up on us really, really quickly. So if you haven't had it on your calendar, you know, we encourage the board to attend May 21st, which is a Sunday. Commencement starting at 1 o'clock, so it will be indoors. I think we've kind of moved away from trying to put that on outside. There's just too many factors that make it hard. So that'll be inside. You know, I'll give you a little bit more information as the day gets closer about, you know, potential involvement of the board. You know, typically we have at least the board chair up on stage, those kinds of things. You know, we'll deal with that as the day gets closer, but wanted to put it on your radar because it's coming really fast. So hopefully you can attend.
Okay.
That's what I had.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Questions or things for Shannon? Okay, Abby, you are up with our district safety plan.
I don't have anything formal to present, so I just wanted to make sure I was here if you had any questions about what I shared about our emergency plan. Any questions or comments?
I have some questions, and I'm sorry I didn't get these to you earlier in writing. But on page 4 of the document, there's a statement on number 5.
Number 5. Yep.
Where one sentence is repeated twice.
Yep.
And I was wondering, is one of those sentences supposed to be something about outdoor or parking lot?
No.
Okay.
It's just repeated twice.
Okay.
Making sure they really got that point.
And I looked through the document and I cannot find it. What is MSDS?
Material safety data sheet.
Oh, Marge got it.
Material safety
Data
sheet.
It comes with each
Chemical.
chemical that
Yeah.
tells you how to deal with it and.
Oh, I don't,
Teachers do them.
can you spell that out there? So people who are reading it for the first time on the board know what that is?
They're just SDS now, right?
Yeah.
It's not material
Safety data
safety.
sheets.
It is, they just changed it, they changed it. A few things about it.
You guys have your acronyms, we have our acronyms.
And then number 22, I think we want to eliminate.
Page 22?
No, it's on page 4 still.
Oh, well, yeah, so, once that's finalized, we would. Yep.
Okay, all right. And then on page 5, number 24, we talked about this winter, adding a drill for our security system.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be appropriate to
Yeah.
add that here?
Yep. I can work with you about the wording of how to put that in there.
Great.
Yep.
And then number 30 refers to shots. Should that be vaccines or vaccinations?
It can, I use a template to help write these, so we can the wording, yeah.
And then there's a lot of pages, 10, 11, 12, 18, 21 through 23, where I think some names are gonna need to be changed, but perhaps you do that in the fall?
Yeah, we update these over the summer with
Okay.
the staff. Yep.
All right. On page 19, there's the other maps, elementary and middle school. They have people designated that others report to, but the high school map doesn't have that. Do you want to include that, or is that?
Nope, it's how they run their drills.
Okay.
Yep. Based on how they
And then on page 31, there's a heading about student referrals. And it says something about the person immediately, let me get there so I say this right.
Yep.
Page 31, it says the person is to report the situation immediately to the building principal or designee. And in the heading below, it says report immediately to Family Child Services with a phone number or law enforcement. And we have a policy, 8462, that says for both of those, it should be law enforcement or the Family Child Services with the phone number. At least that's the way I read the policy, so if you could just take a look at that.
I will.
Okay.
I can follow up on that. We can update.
And then that was all I saw.
What was the policy, Lori?
8462. It's,
62.
Yeah. I can't remember what the name of the policy, school safety or something maybe?
Child abuse and neglect.
Yes, 8462.
Follow up on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Any other additional questions when Abby's here?
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Looking at our financial reports and enrollment report, are there any questions or areas to address on either of those areas? Okay. Then moving on to our advanced operations. Is there a motion? We have the school to approve the course request, the CISA contract, and the district academic and career planning plan. Is there any questions or discussions with that, or are we able to approve those? Is there a motion to approve those items?
Make a motion to approve item 4, advanced operations A, B, and C as listed on the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now it gets exciting. Installment of oath into office for Bruce and Ian. Here we go.
You guys want to join me up front? You've got yours well colored in. Your oaths.
I think, go, just, it's not turning for some reason, so if you wanna come back, you can see right here what it looks like.
We'll do them at the same time, you just have to say your own name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hold it right there then.
Not state your name, like literally state your name.
Your name?
Yes. If you guys could both raise your right hand and then repeat after me. I, state your name,
Hi, Ian McDonald.
have been elected or appointed to the office of the School District of Somerset School Board,
Having been elected or appointed to the office of the School District of Somerset School Board,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof, swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof, swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will fully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Welcome back. And then once you guys sign that, if you could get it to me at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Congrats again, Chris. Okay, going on to consenting agenda with the minutes, board bills, personnel update, and food memo. Any questions or discussion, or would somebody like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of March 2023, the minutes of April 3rd, 2023, the board bills, the personnel update, and the athletics personnel update as presented.
Is there a second?
So moved.
Further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to get the board's input on a couple of corrections that I saw perhaps necessary for the April 3rd minutes.
Okay.
So in the item, review of district academic and career planning plan, if Alicia could just add, this will come back to the April 17 regular session board meeting for approval. It's in all the other items. I think it was just overlooked for this one.
Yep.
And then in the policy review, if we could add the titles to the policies, it makes it a lot easier to remember which policy we were talking about. And then this is the part, I'm gonna say how I remember it, and I wanna make sure that we're in agreement. Could we also add clarified for policy 0166 agenda, that the board would like to continue receiving all notes, reports, and supplemental information no later than 3 p.m. on the Wednesday preceding each meeting, and if necessary to email separately items that will not be linked. Is that how you remember we agreed to it? And then for policy, clarified for policy 0167.3, public comment at board meetings, that each speaker has only 3 minutes per topic. If a subsequent speaker wishes to continue what the prior speaker started, the subsequent speaker must actually speak rather than give additional 3 minutes to the prior speaker. Is that how you remember we decided it would be?
So you'd like that in noted there?
Added to the minutes.
I was wondering if there was a number.
No, there's not, but it's in there. I think it would
Yeah,
be,
in the minutes,
especially for the policy that, I think maybe to have that out with that 167.3, that would be just to have documented. Are you guys okay with that?
It's nice and clear. Yep, that's fine.
Further discussion?
Catch all that, Alicia?
So your motion did not include the food memo?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay, well, that's still the motion, but we could do it an additional. I
Okay.
didn't know if that was intentional, that you didn't want the food
No,
memo
I
in
just
there?
missed it,
Okay.
I just didn't see it.
Okay.
I also had a couple questions about the personnel update, and so while we're discussing, this would be the time to ask. I see in the personnel update that we're filling Wade Erickson's position. Can we get some information about the status of John Schultz's position? It's no longer listed, but we don't have anything on our.
Right. It's in the process of being finalized. So you should see next meeting, yep, a hiring for that.
All right. And I'd just like to say thank you to our retirees, Don Miller, 25 years of service in the district, Don Spafford, 33 years in the district, Diana Peterson, 18 years, and Lynn Harstead, 18 years. Your dedication to the district is tremendously appreciated, and you'll be greatly missed.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
I need a second.
We did.
Who did it?
Sure.
I did.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
Should we amend it to include
Or we can
item?
just add another one. Here. Do you want to amend it, or do you want to add another one?
I can amend it to include the food memo. Memo.
So that is amended to include the D food memo, and do you second that amended?
yes.
Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to general information, our next work session is May 1st, and May 15th is our regular session with the listening session 30 minutes prior. And we'll move on to our once around the table. Lori, would you like to start?
Sure, I'd like to thank Leslie Thomas again for her work in applying and being awarded multiple grants for the district and the Spartan Kid Care employees. Congratulations to Bruce and Ian for being elected to the board for a third term and second term. And thank you to the community for supporting the referendum on April 4th. I am so excited about what this will mean for our students and for our community. Thank you.
Ian?
I'll repeat it. Thank you to the community for supporting the referendum. Desperately needed and very exciting.
Matt?
Yeah, I've got nothing, I don't need to repeat what they both said, I agree. I think we're in a good spot. It's tough times right now, but we're gonna come out ahead, so. Thanks.
I'll echo what they said as well. Keep going. Bruce?
Keep reaching out to the state representatives, try to push that through so we can make some of these decisions that brought up again tonight.
Sheree?
Do we have the calendar updated for the listening session sign up? I think it only went through April, or did it
We
go
can
through
add
May?
on to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that way we can get signed up for those. And then congratulations, Dr. Donnelly.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, very exciting.
Marge?
Same as those two.
Okay. With that, then, is there a motion to adjourn into closed session of the board pursuant of Wisconsin statutes section 1985-1C to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of a public employee over which the board has jurisdiction?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? And we'll do a roll call vote. Lori?
Yes.
Ian?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Bruce?
Yes.
Cherie?
Yes.
Marge?
Yes.
Motion carries. We are now moving into closed session at 7:08 p.m.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you. I just hope more importantly, the strange thing about all the grooming and all the books and all that is nobody's